The Rings of Power is a masterpiece, an epic saga. Tolkien would be proud. The Rings of Power is poop. It's written like poop, the acting is poop, the dialogue is aggressive diarrhea. There are a lot of ways to describe this show, but if you're in a hurry, that sums it up for you.
You know, some people call that art. It's crap!
We're almost at the halfway mark now, and I feel safe in saying this show is an empty husk. A shell of a great intellectual property, using its namesake to draw in an audience without delivering anything worth watching. The first episode, now I'll give you the first 3 episodes, should be where you go in, guns blazing, to capture the audience's attention and give them a reason to come back. But nope, it uses the Lord of the Rings name and pretends that's enough reason to watch. It's a borderline train wreck draped in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of CGI.
With our hearts even bigger in our feet.
Wow, a line so deep it gives Johnny Sins a run for his money. The old, you can polish a turd but it's still a turd saying definitely applies, and I realize I'm talking about poo a lot, but just watch the show and you'll see why. Rings of Power lives entirely off of nostalgia for Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings film trilogy, with memberberry after memberberry thrown at you to try and keep you engaged.
Remember Gandalf?
Because the writers don't have an actual story to adapt. It's nothing but uber expensive fan fiction. It wants to emulate Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films in every way, but also desires to stand on its own, and fails spectacularly at accomplishing either. The fact that most positive reviews talk almost exclusively about the show's grandeur of scenery, set pieces, and its CGI splendor should illuminate just how lacking the story and acting departments are. The costume design also looked pretty rough in the promotional material, and it lives up to that anticipated poor quality with CW-level outfits for most of the characters. It's honestly pretty pathetic. Before I dive into it, I should mention, following the production of the show and the parallel response to it has been nothing short of fascinating. I'm a fan of Tolkien in Lord of the Rings, although probably not classified as a superfan or Tolkien scholar, whatever that means. I feel like that was a respectable title to have until this show happened. Regardless, I've watched quite a bit from both sides of the aisle on this one. One side consists of Amazon and pandering shills who would do anything to keep their early access to anything media related, and who just like anything with Lord of the Rings on it.
I'm gonna go Galadriel.
Yeah, I love Galadriel.
Galadriel.
I'm already obsessed.
Stunning and beautiful.
Corruption and manipulation.
You know, the kind of people who would remind the teacher about last night's homework assignment.
Hi, my name is Corey Olson, the Tolkien Professor. I'm president of Signum University, and I've been doing a podcast on Tolkien called The Tolkien Professor for more than 10 years now.
You fucking nerd!
Then there are the fans calling out reality, that the show breaks Tolkien lore left and right, and the creators haven't just admitted to these things, they're pleased with themselves about it. As a fan but not super fan, I realized a lot of parallels between what's going on in the Rings of Power world and, well, every other bit of popular culture at the moment. It does indeed rear its head here, and here I am, not minding my own business. Since it's 2022, there are plenty of things you can anticipate with this. Plenty of ist and ism words thrown at people who simply want authenticity in their adaptations of a beloved book series. A series that's one of the greatest works of fiction in human history. What I noticed when watching the show, though, is that it would suck even if they were to correct certain criticisms.
Cynic, you piece of shit. Just watch the whole series before you judge it.
Before I get criticized for reviewing something before it's done, might I remind folks ready to spew vitriol in my comment section that the critics you hold up for giving it a positive review have also only seen the first few episodes, so get your head out of your ass.
Episode 1.
The show opens with the prologue like Peter Jackson's films because it wants you to remember how awesome that was and hopefully pass some of that adoration onto the show. For those not easily duped, this will be a recognizable ongoing theme and grows tiresome pretty quickly. Galadriel, or Galadriel, as some people in the show call her, is building a stupid boat out of stupid paper that somehow requires idiotic pseudo-philosophical reasoning by her brother. This, of course, is after the writers decide to go the Captain Marvel route and have strong female belittled and bullied by weak male. Whenever you can emulate Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, I strongly advise you to. Anyway, she beats up the kid who threw rocks at it for no reason, other than to have the writers show Galadriel don't take no shit. Fast forward to her leading a bunch of elves to hunt for orc or whatever because she needs to avenge her brother's death. Galadriel is the best kind of leader. She doesn't listen to anyone else, talks shit to her apparent subordinates, and knows exactly what she's doing because, obviously, she's driven solely by revenge and doesn't give a fuck about her team. This is also when we're graced with Morphy Clark's acting, which is about as exciting as Ben Stein playing Ferris Bueller's teacher.
Holly Smoot, tariff act which anyone raised or lowered raised tariffs.
This is apparently the trope Hollywood's gonna be running with their female-led movies and shows, also known as the Mary Sue. She knows what's right, because of course she does, and she'll be questioned at every turn because of course she will, and in the end, she will absolutely be right because of course she is. Very nuanced, guys.
Oh, remember cave trolls? Oh, I remember, they were fantastic.
This is where I realized what was in store for me. Member berries. Lots of them. I honestly didn't anticipate the creators trying for a nostalgia bait style show, but here we are. It's pretty revealing they kicked the show off in this way because it's supposed to remind us of the excitement of the troll encounter in Fellowship of the Ring, but it's different because it's a snow troll, not your run-of-the-mill troll. It's a great example of the showrunners trying to be Peter Jackson's movies, but also desiring to separate themselves. I'm wondering when Hollywood's going to realize emulating a previous experience just makes people yearn for the original one, and highlights the inferiority of the replica before us. When I was watching this, right as the troll showed up, I said out loud, "Let me guess. Galadriel's going to be the one to defeat it after the other ones get their asses kicked." So what happens, you ask? Well, they all get their asses handed to them by the troll when strong, boring woman beats it completely by herself. Talk about subverting my expectations, this shit is awesome. Strong woman jumps up like, "Yeah, fuck you, physics," and doesn't even look at her enemy as she whoops its ass. I hope you were in awe of the laughable fight choreography and shitty CGI like I was. If they were going for something that felt like it was ripped straight from a CW show, they did a fantastic job. Also, wasn't she leading these people to potentially fight orcs? Aren't they supposed to be badass? They just got their asses handed to them by a snow troll and she beat it by herself. Hey guys, not sure if you're aware, but
she's fucking tough.
At this point, I looked at the time and couldn't believe it had been 18 minutes already. Fucking nothing has happened so far, but the music would tell you otherwise. It's loud and booming, but it feels so out of scale with what's happening on screen. It's trying to engage the audience like it's trying to make up for a lack of excitement on the screen. It feels like the music's compensating and trying too hard because the show has to be epic. Now we're switching to when all the addicts come out when they hear the meth cream man. These are hobbits. I mean, Harfoots. I get they're an ancestor of hobbits or whatever, but you know what the creators are doing.
See, guys? It's exactly like you remember, so you'll love it. It's also totally different and stands on its own.
We get an extended scene trying to replicate the fun, heartfelt scenes of Hobbiton from the film trilogy. It, of course, ends up, once again, feeling like a wannabe version of something superior. Side note, huge fan of the Harfoots having mismatched accents. In one scene, a character switches from Irish to American to British accents in 3 sentences. Good stuff, guys. Flipping back to the elves, we're introduced to the Wish.com version of Orlando Bloom playing Elrond. I'll bet $1 and a handshake they cast this dude to give people a subconscious memberberry of Legolas. We get to see strong women and wannabe Bloom walking around some expensive-looking CGI. Talk about overcompensating. Anyway, yeah, so they walk around and strong woman acts all petulant, defiant, and whatnot because, obviously. When she was doing this, it reminded me of the original Thor movie. Even though the movie wasn't amazing by any stretch, the writing at least understood the character and painted him as petulant for the audience, even though we appreciated his charisma and looked forward to how he would redeem himself.
You'd stand giving speeches while Asgard falls.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy!
And you are an old man and a fool!
Here, strong woman is just petulant, but we're not supposed to think of her that way. No, we're supposed to be on her side.
But you have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen what I have seen.
Okay, I need to stop right here, just for a moment. This line really encapsulates the limp noodle way the dialogue's written. Remember now, this television series isn't really adapting anything. And now think of the Lord of the Rings trilogy again. The dialogue from those films was ripped straight from the pages of Tolkien, which is why it always sounded so elegant, eloquent, and almost poetic.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought.
Now put yourself in modern day Little Writer shoes and think of Little Writer things to have the characters say. And don't forget, you're writing something in Tolkien's world. Now, think about the
sheer fucking hubris
it takes to actually believe you can follow Tolkien, and not only that, but demand praise for the show you're writing. To actually think someone else could write Tolkien's world, let alone imitate his words, and be on par with, or as I'm sure the folks at Amazon would love, to exceed something he's done is the most narcissistic thing in modern pop culture. Yeah, folks, that's what this line of dialogue made me realize. This show shouldn't fucking exist. But we carry on, don't we? The high-quality writing continues on full display here. For the 20th time already, we're told how good of friends Strong Women and Orlando Bloom 0.0 are instead of showing us in any nuanced or subtle way. Just told, that's all. Yep, got it, guys. Quality storytelling techniques here. Taking the show don't tell writing advice and shoving it right up your own asses, huh?
Was there anything else?
Yes. Your friend has arrived.
Now we flip to another set of incredibly wooden and uninteresting characters played by people who are about as exciting as a colonoscopy. Apparently some bad shit is going down, or whatever, who cares? I understand the world they're trying to build, and I can appreciate that there are going to be a lot of characters, but there's just nothing cohesive here narratively. There's nothing to invest in. All the characters are boring as fuck, and keep reminding me that there's a better version of this material elsewhere. Tolkien introduced his characters into the main story slower, focusing on Frodo and the hobbits for the majority of the Fellowship's opening, but here we just jump, and then jump, and then jump. And so far, there isn't a single character I've looked forward to seeing again.
For the same wind that seeks to blow out a fire may also cause its spread.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up!
This dialogue makes me wish I was deaf. Well, and blind. Then I couldn't read the subtitles either. Hey, at least they have some great aestheticians in Middle-earth because her eyebrows are killing it today. We conclude this boring-ass episode with a climax, I guess. Strong Woman decides to stay in Middle-earth and jumps overboard. Some shit is going down somewhere or something, and Dumbledore arrives. Even if this guy doesn't end up being Gandalf, it's who the show wants you to think of. So what is this? Member berry number 104? Oh wait, don't forget Ents.
Oh, remember Ents? Remember?
Alright, so that concludes my review of Rings of Power. Wait! There's a second episode? God damn it! When is this nightmare gonna stop?
It's gonna run for 5 seasons.
5 seasons? I legitimately fell asleep during the first episode. I had to wake up and rewind it. The show was just that goddamn boring. When I went to watch the second episode, I assumed my nap would be sufficient to get me through the entirety of it, but I fell asleep during the second episode too. Somehow, some way, Amazon's figured out a way to make 2 hours feel like an eternity. Anyway, let's dive in.
Previously on Rings of Power.
The show has to start with a recap of episode 1, which basically just reminds you that they introduced some characters but had practically zero plot development whatsoever. I suppose this is here because it makes the show seem like a bigger deal. Dumbledore is bumbling around and some Harfoots are trying to figure him out or whatever. Meanwhile, Orlando Bloom 2.0 seeks out help from the dwarves for something, so they can be introduced to the story, honestly.
Oh, remember the door in Fellowship of the Ring?
We shall break the great stones until one of us can break no more!
Whoa boy! Looks like Orlando Bloom 2 is going to have to smash some rocks in a rock smashing competition if he wants to speak to Gamley, whatever.
Remember Gimli?
Smashing rocks can be pretty compelling. I am stoked for this. This is the scene where I realized the prosthetics, makeup, and wardrobe fell woefully short of expectations considering the budget. OG Gimli's nose is observable as a prosthetic from the surface of the moon, it's so bad. And I guess they got the costume designers from the CW too. I'm pretty sure Hercules the Legendary Journeys in the 90s had better costume design than this show. Flip back over to Strong Woman after she jumped from her boat and she's swimming in the calmest ocean water I've ever seen. As the plot requires, she stumbles across the makeshift raft filled with people being attacked by Godzilla. If you're feeling sleepy, this is your lucky day. The episode continues providing zero reason to be invested in any of the characters whatsoever, particularly our main character, so rest your eyes, tired one. It's nap time. The handsome toxic dude who was suspicious of Strong Woman is the only survivor of the attack besides her because, well, obviously. And back to the exhilarating rock-breaking contest. This is compelling television, folks. Now, get ready for the most epic line of dialogue yet.
The dog may bark at the moon, but he cannot bring it down.
Oh man, the chills I felt hearing this. The unparalleled writing prowess of the showrunners. Tolkien would bow to their superiority. Admittedly, the one quality bit of acting in the show so far is from Durin the Dwarf, and actually feels like he could form into a three-dimensional character and not a stoic plank of wood.
20 years may be the blink of an eye to an elf. But I've lived an entire life in that time. A life you missed.
And of course, we now jump back to Strong Women, who just so happened to run into the person who will give her information to drive the plot forward.
Are you going to tell me where the enemy is or not?
The Southlands.
While she was randomly swimming in the fucking ocean. And now let's jump back to the elf-human love story thing again, where I made the observation in my notes here that the editing is actually pretty poor in this show too. As an Orc Attacks, I actually wanted to heap a little praise here. There's an appreciation I have for practical effects and costumes, and the Hobbit trilogy got so far away from that it gave me the big sad. The show at least wisely went back to a mostly practical costume for the orcs, and I'm thankful for that. There you go. I've given you 2 things that are good, out of 2 hours. Chad saves Strong Women without an inkling of a compelling reason to, other than having the audience go,
Well, of course, that's what they do in stories.
There's zero chemistry between these characters, and I'm not entirely sure if it's the actors or the writing, but honestly, it's probably a combination of both. There's zero interesting expressions shown between these characters, and no mutual ground or commonalities discussed. They just do what the plot needs them to do. And with that, thankfully, episode 2's over. And hell, might as well review episode 3 while I'm here. Episode 3 starts off with our elf lead captured by orcs, then flips straight to Strong Women and Chad after they've been rescued by early 2000s Russell Crowe and brought to Numenor. Does Numenor look beautiful? Absolutely. But that hollow feeling that's been there since episode 1 persists. There's simply no heart to this show. It's like looking at a beautiful digital painting. Impressive? Sure. Good? Your mileage may vary. Strong Women confronts shocked women about leaving, and they end up staying in Numenor because reasons, and we cut away to be introduced to even more new characters. And we get this brilliant line.
The sea is always right.
The sea is always right.
Johnny Sins officially one-upped. Then, we're back to the captured elf. The orcs give the prisoners some water, and when one of the kidnapped people is drinking it, an orc slices away. And I'm assuming we're supposed to feel really sad. At least that's what the music's telling us. I'm mourning this dude like I mourned Wade in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Alright, right behind you.
Wait!
It's that intense, man. Wade didn't deserve it. The scene continues to drive the point home that 2.5 hours into this show, there isn't a single character the audience has grown attached to in the slightest, because they're all just hollow planks of wood. And this dude? Did anyone even catch this guy's name? Who cares? Going back to Strong Women, she threatens her rescuer, who ends up being able to speak Elvish.
Lalje sanke loilquen, Erinia.
And holy shit, Strong Women's facial expression actually changed. Her lips raised slightly, almost like a wry smile. Nah, too nuanced. I don't believe it. Eyes deceive me. Whoa, now she's smiling, and it looks terrifying. What the fuck? Next up, Chad tries to get on the good side of the locals, and to be fair, I actually really like this line.
You're not so bad, low man.
Well, then I best make my retreat. Well, you still got a warm opinion of me.
Clever. So what's that? 3 good moments so far in 2.5 hours? This potentially could have been a cool little fight scene, but the choreography is just slow and dull and cheesy looking. And these are things that are just clearly not going to improve as the show goes on. We now return to the Harfoots, where the creators continue trying and failing at replicating the fun of Hobbiton. Dumbledore walks over to a fire to take a look at a map, and somehow the Harfoots standing a couple feet away don't notice some towering figure just standing there until he slips on a banana peel and makes a ruckus. Junior Harfoot gets in trouble for mingling with the Slender Man, and her whole family is subsequently punished for it. Go right back to Strong Women, who finds Chad in a jail cell, and she identifies him as the king of his land or whatever. Basically, it's supposed to remind you of Aragorn's storyline.
You are more than you claim. I found this in the Hall of Law.
Impressive. Very nice.
The episode ends with the prisoners attacking their orc captors, and we're treated to a Sci-Fi Channel quality CGI creature. If the only reason to watch this show is to look at how pretty it is, this isn't doing you any favors. They even recycle some sound effects from other films for its bark/roar thing. Our elvish friend hates gravity more than Galadriel, and he fucks that thing up. Also, twigs are deadly. We follow that up with a, I wish this was anywhere near as epic as Boromir's death scene, and thankfully, the episode is finally over. And God, this one episode felt like it was 3 hours long. Much like She-Her-Hulk, I'm not sure if I'll end up reviewing more of this show. Let's go back over the reasons why. It's a pale imitation of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Besides the CGI, everything here feels like a B-movie version of the film trilogy. The CGI might be great, but really? That's why someone watches a television show? 'Cause it looks nice? The makeup, costume design, and prosthetics are CW level. The characters and the actors portraying them are unforgivably bland. And the writing, the pacing, the editing, the dialogue. This is nothing but an empty husk, a shell of a once great intellectual property. I hated this show. Let's watch something good. Any recommendations, folks? Anyway, till next time. GG's.